In this video, I'm going to talk about a single planet that I believe could prove to be critical toward the demise of the Orange Menace. It is, of course, true that there are quite a number of planets all ganging up on him at the same time in the present period and the near and distant future. But this particular planet tells a very interesting tale, because I've even heard some astrologers think that it could be a potential asset to him, in that sometimes presidents will display the strength of this particular planet in their charts. And so there's a sense that because the US also has this particular planetary signature, this particular flavor ingrained in the psyche of the country, there's a sense in which there is a resonance between Trump and the US. However, in studying it over the years, by which I mean Trump's years, we go back to 2015, the transit of the planet tells a different tale. We're talking about Uranus here, which, first of all, in his chart is next to the North Node and the Sun, opposite the Moon. On the opposite Moon alone, that has to be considered a difficult, afflicted planet. But then if we add its proximity to the Sun, this is a condition known as combust. The Sun's energy overcomes it, and so it weakens the planet and psychologically makes it harder for the person, in this case Trump, to properly access the energy of the planet. And this is why he behaves like an ultra-rebel, a rebel without a cause teenager. This is where Uranus expresses itself on the downside. However, if you are looking for what happened and where things might go next, you notice that in the transit, he got elected when it was in Aries over here. In fact, around election time, it was near the 21st degree, which meant it was in sextile to his Sun and trining his Moon. There it is helping him, or at least it's not preventing something from happening at that time, which probably in largest measure, the entry point into the presidency was Jupiter transiting through Libra in its return point, trining the Sun and sextiling the Moon. But I digress. Point being, Uranus is in Aries, and then as soon as he's elected, it starts to transit degrees that are mixed, because on the one hand, he was getting a Mars trine, and on the other, he was getting squares to Saturn and Venus. And that was the tumultuous time in the first years, because if you recall, he was being investigated immediately, and he was quite off balance, particularly in 2017, due to the Mueller investigation. And this is something that continued throughout his whole presidency. He's never been free of controversy. But nevertheless, you could argue that the trine to Mars and to the ascendant, until it entered Taurus in 2018, would help to hold him up. But in 2018, even though it didn't bring him down right away, you notice that by 2018, controversy was increasing. It was becoming more intense. By the end of the year, the Republicans lost the House of Representatives. And by 2019, Uranus is a little bit more in here, and Taurus, and Michael Cohen is testifying, and Trump's dirty laundry is starting to become more and more public. And then by 2020, it was transiting effectively in the 10th degree, which it had reached in the middle of the year, but therefore squaring Pluto as the election was happening, and he lost. Which means this planet was not helping him through that square. And we begin to see one of the facets of Uranus when it's working against you, which is that it'll separate you from something. Now, of course, it's true that in lots of cases in people's lives, Uranus separates through divorce, other forms of separation, and often the person will realize ultimately that perhaps it was for the better and so forth. But at the time, it feels jarring and difficult and shocking. And in a case like this, when we're talking about politics, it's the idea whether you win or lose. And definitely, he didn't win that one. He lost it. I mean, he keeps saying he won it, but he lost it. There's no doubt about it. And he's not president anymore. So that was that correlation. Since then, it has been transiting forward, so that now it's up here, and it's reached as far as the 23rd degree this year. So it's almost on his MC. And from that place, it does form a sextile to his Saturn-Venus, so there are pluses, probably in the sense that he's acting as the conduit for the MAGA people. He's their rebel leader, so that would be the sextile to these planets. But the problem he's having is that going into 2024, Uranus will cross solidly through this MC, and you can see it here, reach the 25th, 26th, 27 degrees in September, meaning it's going to be in a direct square to Mars. And this is not only a bit beyond helping the Venus, and therefore much more connected to challenging and hurting the Mars, but we know that Mars in his chart rules the legal house. And so this would point to the legal problems he's going to be experiencing at that point. This planet is not helpful from there at all. And I would surmise, once again, it's going to separate him from something in a major way. The separation coming from the career house, connected to the legal house, and so forth. And you also have to notice that that's what happens in 24. Then it backtracks as we go into the late stages of the year. But if we check 2025, we notice that it comes back to those degrees one more time and squares the Mars again in early 2025. But we can extend this because the ascendant is next at the very end of Leo. So really, the Uranus is squaring all the way into the spring of 26 when it finally leaves Taurus and enters Gemini, where it'll be for the following 7 years. Now, the thing is, further evidence to the way that Uranus behaves in his chart and the logic that it is not at all necessarily a helpful planet, in fact, I think it can be a very damaging planet, is that through a totally separate measurement, which is the solar arcs. Solar arcs are directions in which you add the movement of the sun to each planet and see where it goes. As you do that, and you measure connections to the original chart. Well, the Uranus, stunning to see it, that starts here at birth, and you solar arc it like this, and it moved in this direction over the years, and it was right there, right on the ascendant, when he mounted the insurrection and he was removed from office. Even though he wanted to stay, that separated him from his goal. So, this tells me, among other things, this planet is not a helpful influence, and so I definitely add it to all the other planetary problems he's experiencing, and I would say it is likely to be a key player in bringing about his defeat.